Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Just Saying Football with Jack and Sean. I'm your host, Sean Gann, alongside my partner, Jack and Nicholas. We're here to bring you news, notes, weekly updates, and game analysis of your favorite teams from around the league. If you have the chance, go check out our website, justsayingfootball.com. Follow us on Instagram at JustSayingNoGWJS for article and video updates. Don't forget to get us in your ears at Just Saying Football. Also, go check out the Discord, Just Saying Football, and Spotify, Just Saying Football. Buddy, how you doing today? What are you feeling? We're moving on into Week 8.
Yeah, moving into Week 8, things are getting real. Injuries are happening. Teams are in some big situations that we'll talk about. This was a very interesting week. 2 Monday Night Football games, both of them good games. Finally, we got some good primetime football. But, man, we had some Russell Wilson action this week. The Giants are bad again, and the Vikings, despite losing as well, they're still good. So, we have a lot to talk about today. Well, let's get into news and notes.
Knew we were going to be undefeated for long, was kind of hoping that we'd edge out the win against the Lions. But let's jump into this because there's a lot to get into. All right off the bat, rookie Jaden Daniels injured his ribs in Week 7. There's a chance he's going to play in Week 8, but who actually knows? It's going to be a game-time decision. Deshaun Watson suffered a torn Achilles. He's going to be out for the rest of the season. That's good or bad news for Cleveland, depending how you're looking at it. A lot of injuries for San Francisco right now. Brandon Ayuk is out for the rest of the season with a torn ACL and MCL, which is absolutely brutal. We wish him the speedy recovery. Deebo Samuel was hospitalized with pneumonia-like symptoms with fluid in his lungs. Totally fair that he missed that game, now that we know that. CMC is still dealing with his Achilles. Jawan Jennings has a hip injury, and George Kittle is dealing with a foot strain. Got to bubble wrap that guy, as one of our friends said. All right, DK Metcalf has a grade 1 MCL sprain and is considered week to week. Something to monitor for fantasy. Cooper Kupp is officially expected to make his return in Week 8 against the Vikings. See, guys, not everything's bad here. Braxton Berrios tore his ACL and will be out for the rest of the season, so it is kind of bad. Jameson Williams is suspended for 2 games due to PES use. Tua is expected to return this week, which is huge news. Really bad news for Bucs fans. Mike Evans went down with a knee injury on his 100th touchdown catch, aggravated it. He's going to be out until Week 11. Chris Godwin went down with a severe leg injury, and he's going to be out for the rest of the season. DeForest Buckner and Jonathan Taylor for the Colts are expected to return to practice this week, which is huge news for fantasy and for their team. For the Vikings, Blake Cashman is still dealing with some turf toe. He's going to be a game-time decision. Still a chance that TJ Hawkinson plays in this game, although Monday Kevin O'Connell didn't commit to it. Same with Dalton Risner, who could take over for right guard for Ed Ingram this year. Chris Olave is still in concussion protocol. He could be back in this one, so that's something to monitor. And Juju Smith-Schuster, who had a great first game with the Chiefs when he came back, has suffered a hamstring injury, and he's going to be week to week, so that's something to monitor. There's a lot of stuff happening as we get into the middle of the season.
Yeah.
We're in the
that was a mouthful, as they say, for sure. And, when you look at all these injuries, it just shows where we are in the season. You're at Week 8. These guys are tired. It is still a long season, 10 more weeks left in the regular season here. But, man, this is definitely the week we've seen the biggest spread so far, as well as just, so our blowout games this week, they're pretty big.
They're going to be a little bit lopsided, everybody. We're going to let you know that now. So let's jump into our blowout section. Kicking this right off, we've got the Baltimore Ravens making their way to Cleveland. Baltimore's favored this one -10 with an over-under here of 42.5. I'm locking in Baltimore. They were great. Went down 10-0 against Tampa Bay Monday night. Took off. Dominated the game. Derrick Henry, you're a legend. Thank you for helping me and my fantasy team.
Yeah, Derrick Henry, 117 yards already away from 1,000. That's going to be an interesting thing to monitor throughout the season. The Ravens last night looked amazing. They play really well against Cleveland, so taking the Ravens, no problem here.
Couldn't agree with you more. Stefanski, his job will be something to monitor as we get into this later on in the season. Keep that in mind, everybody. Moving this along, Tennessee Titans make their way to Detroit to take on the Lions. Lions favoring this one by the largest spread of the year so far, 11.5 with an over-under here of 45.5. Thoughts in this game, my guy?
Oh, the Titans, man. They are falling apart. I would have never guessed that a team with Tony Pollard playing the way he is and Calvin Ridley, DeAndre Hopkins, but they're 1-6. The Lions 5-1. Definitely trying to keep that streak alive right now. They've won 4 straight. Gibbs 32 fantasy points last week. Lions at home, no problem here.
Yeah, I'm locking in the Lions as well. Jared Goff has just been playing lights out the last 3 games. They're looking fantastic. Jahmyr Gibbs is getting it done on the ground. The defense and their defensive ends are going to be something to monitor as the season continues, I think. just to see if they can make out a big trade or anything like that, get somebody in there to sort of supplement the Aiden Hutchinson injury. So just keep that in mind, everybody. But I'm locking in the Lions. Everybody knows how I feel about Will Levis. I'm not about him. And although I do prefer Mason Rudolph, that was tough to watch last week as well. Just a different kind of tough. All right, moving this right along. We got the New Orleans Saints making their way to Los Angeles to take on the Chargers. The Chargers are favored in this one by -7.5 with an over-under here of 40.5. Don't forget, everybody, Saints are dealing with a handful of injuries as well. Shaheed's out for the year. Chris Olave, who we mentioned a little bit ago, is still dealing with the concussion. Obviously, Derek Carr is out with an oblique injury. So there's a lot, once again, on the shoulders of Spencer Rattler going in this one. How are you feeling?
Yeah, definitely. Like you said, the theme for New Orleans is just unfortunate. Dennis Allen says just one of those years. Chargers 7.5. I feel like it's a trap. I'll take them at home to win, but I'll monitor that spread. I think that over under 40.5. We saw the Chargers kind of be, they were stalling a lot on Monday Night Football. So give me the under in this game too.
I think the best part about Monday Night Football, if you're a Chargers fan, is that Justin Herbert threw for 349 yards. You know what I mean? It sucked that you couldn't get in the end zone with the passing touchdown. I had a two touchdown bet out there for him. But it's the best part of the season right now, okay? You saw Will Dissly play a big role. We saw Ladd McConkey play a big role. So let's see how they continue. Let's hope that they get in the end zone. But I'm absolutely going to lock them in right now. I just think that the Saints right now, their offense is just struggling. They had a tough blowout loss at home against the Broncos in Sean Payton's return. Let's just see as the season goes on. All right, moving this along. Speaking of the Broncos, we have the Carolina Panthers making their way to Denver to take on the Broncos. Broncos are favored this by -7.5 with an over-under here of 41.5. Just talked about him. Sean Payton got the win last week in New Orleans. How are you feeling this week back at home?
Yeah, right now, I mean, you got to feel some confidence in Denver. It seems like last week they finally got Javonte Williams out there working. Love to see that. But the Panthers, I said it last week that they're on the pace to give up the most yards ever. Definitely a huge, yardage day for Washington against them last week. I think that this is just an easy win here, 7.5 Denver. They're going to run the ball all day. Sean Payton is not trying to risk anything big. They got a winning record right now.
Yep, I think this is going to be a very interesting game. The Broncos have a great defense, and they have for the last 2 years. And honestly, Bo Nix, it necessarily hasn't always been pretty this season. Didn't throw a touchdown through his first 3 weeks. His last 4 weeks, though, he's thrown 5 touchdowns with only 1 interception. I'd like to see that growth. Let's see if they can continue as the season goes on. But I'm locking them in right now. It's just tough right now in Carolina. They're bound to get a win at some point, and I'm really curious about who it's going to be. I just don't see it happening right now. All right, moving this right along, we have an AFC West showdown. Kansas City Chiefs making their way to Los Angeles to take on the Raiders. Kansas City's favored in this one by -10 with an over-under here of 43.5. Kansas City, huge win against San Francisco. A large part of that may be due to injuries, but still, statement win. We saw Mahomes just lowering the shoulder on 49ers defenders. Rushing touchdown, thank you, Mahomes. You're finally getting me points. He never does. How are you feeling in this game?
Yeah, Kansas City, Pat Mahomes right now, undefeated, yet leading the league in interceptions. I think this is it's just insane how Kansas City continues to win these games. But you got a division matchup. If this was maybe the Chargers after last week or the Broncos, I would pick them, but I am going to take the Chiefs, no problem here. I don't know if I take them -10. I may take the Raiders +10. I think they're going to try to use Madison as much as possible. But Mahomes is 10-2 against them in his career, so I'll take the Chiefs.
I also like the Chiefs in this one. I did mention it earlier, but Aiden O'Connell is injured in this one. He's hit the 4-week IR with a thumb injury, so Gardner Minshew's getting the start again. Cesar Nola, though, has been putting together a great defensive game plan week in and week out. This game is always a fun one in the AFC West, but I still think the Chiefs are going to remain undefeated for at least one more week. We'll see if they can do it next week. Moving this right along with the Indianapolis Colts making their way to Houston to take on the Texans. Texans are favored in this one -6.5 with an over-under here of 46. I'm locking in the Texans. I think this is a big bounce-back game for them. How are you feeling?
Yeah, they got to bounce back, Diggs. He was talking that talk last week on the sidelines, early game, and he loves to do that, but he only had about 30 yards last week, so they really are going to have to emphasize also using Tank Dell, who I feel like is just not involved in this offense. But you got to shout out Joe Mixon for what he's been doing this year as well. I think through him, they're going to be able to go up, be 6-2, and get a division win at home. I'll take Houston 6.5, no problem on this.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about this off camera. I know already locked in the Texans, but Anthony Richardson only completed 41% of his passes last week, 24 dropbacks. It's not what you want to be seeing from your former first-round pick. I think benching him is not a bad thing in the way that it was for Bryce Young, considering the injuries that Anthony Richardson had early on in his career and having to come back from that. Let him learn from Joe Flacco. Let Joe Flacco go out there, throw the ball around. Let him learn from that. Then give him the start maybe later on the season or next year. I'm not willing to give up on Richardson yet, but I do think that the Colts need to do a little bit better job because I don't think it's all clicking just yet for him. Moving this along, Monday Night Football in the blowout category, we have your New York Giants making their way to Pittsburgh to take on the Steelers. Steelers are favoring this one by -6, over-under here of 37.5. How are you feeling in this one? We saw the Steelers even just pick off Aaron Rodgers twice. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I'm thinking Russell Wilson made me eat my words last week. I don't know how he did it, but he was the number one fantasy QB last week in Week 7. And for good reason. I mean, he 265 and 2, no mistakes. The Steelers right now, they got Pickens going, they got Najee going. I think they're going to ride this momentum in prime time. We just saw them do it. So, this is going to be Tomlin coaching against Brian Dable. And I'll tell you, Andrew Thomas, that is the biggest loss of the season because Daniel Jones, he was playing okay, but you could see the impact that the offensive line was having last week negatively against, and you're going to be dealing with the same issue here with the Steelers. So give me the Steelers -6, and I will cry on Monday Night Football.
I'm so sorry. I got to lock in the Steelers, buddy. Well, I liked what we saw from Pickens last week. The deep ball from Russell Wilson was flying. It was great to see all of that clicking. Let's see if this offense can keep it going. I think right now, to your point, Andrew Thomas injury, that's a huge one. That means that you're going to have to put a lot of support on T.J. Watt, which will open up for Alex Highsmith, which will open up for Cam Hayward. So this thing is going to be a really defensive, sluggy game. I do think this is a Malik Neighbors great game, despite the matchup against Joey Porter.
I love that.
I think it's back on track for like a 12 for 100 kind of game because he's the only guy that's going to be open consistently. But I do think it's going to be a rough one for Daniel Jones and the Steelers. Hopefully he throws a touchdown, though, because he doesn't like to do that in front of the New York City crowd, as we know. Still, has not thrown a touchdown.
Still.
Which is brutal. All right.
I just want to mention, by the way, I don't want to cut you off, 16 hockey players have scored a point in MetLife Stadium since the last time Daniel Jones. That's a stat I saw this morning, and that's the thing that makes it the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard.
Yeah, it's actually kind of sad. I think we're at 680-something days, maybe 660-something days, and I think it's only 254 for that one, if I recall. Not what you want to be seeing. All right, let's get into our meh category. Thursday Night Football, my Minnesota Vikings make their way to Los Angeles to take on the Rams. Minnesota's favoring this by -3 with an over-under here of 46.5. First loss for the Vikings last week. How are you feeling this game against the Rams?
It's a weird thing when you're looking at a 5-1 team playing a 1-5 team on the road, and that 5-1 team is only favored by 3. I think I think that's something interesting to look at because, as you were saying off camera, the Vikings have been a little slower. I'll let you get into that than people think, but I think they had a great chance of coming back and beating Detroit last week. It was just about Jahmyr Gibbs outpacing a lot of things. Cooper Kupp coming back. We love Cooper Kupp on this show. Great guy, absolute route runner. But we're going to have to see if the Rams can step forward because Kyron Williams is still playing out of his mind, and they haven't had a receiver. So Matthew Stafford's getting his Super Bowl MVP back.
Yep, I think this is going to be a great one for Kupp to be back in. He feasted on the Vikings last time in 2021, 10 for 109 when they played, and they got the win the last time. This is, I believe, the first time that Kevin O'Connell and Sean McVay are going to play against one another. So that will be a fun matchup considering that O'Connell was there when they won the Super Bowl in 2021 as the offensive coordinator. Obviously got Cooper Kupp that triple crown. So there's a lot of familiarity with these two teams. The one thing I'm really excited for in this game more than anything is that you don't need to deal with Aaron Donald right now because you were feeling his presence not out there. Although the FSU starting defenders right now, those rookies are shining Jared Verse for the Rams. So got to give them a shot. But I'm locking in Minnesota. I think this is a get-right game. Not get-right game for us like we played poorly, but you got to answer. You just got your first loss. Last time we went 5-0 was like 2017. We finished that season 8-8. Kevin O'Connell, this entire new regime, it's about flipping the pages, changing to the next chapter. This is a big game for us. So I do want to put that, but I believe in Minnesota. Let's keep this moving along. So we have the Green Bay Packers making their way to Jacksonville to take on the Jaguars. Green Bay's turning this one at -4.5. Over-under here of 50. What are your thoughts on this one? I realize we maybe should have put this in the blowout because I think the Packers are just going to blow right by the Jaguars.
Yeah, the 4.5 really, it's a weird line. I don't know. There may be some trap games this weekend. Definitely it could be like a nice underdog live betting weekend. But I'll tell you one thing. The Packers, they proved something to me last week by beating the Texans. Because I was saying how hard it is to win at Lambeau. That's great. But now they're going to go to Jacksonville. They're going to be playing in nice, sunny weather. Josh Jacobs getting his first receiving touchdown last week. Had the longest amount of catch drought ever without a receiving touchdown. So shout out to him with that. But you know what's crazy, Sean, is that I'm taking the Packers, obviously, but I just want to mention Romeo Doubs is somehow leading this team in targets. He's leading the team in yards, touchdowns, and you still have Jaden Reed, who's like sixth, like in most categories for like yards per catch. All these things. Jordan Love, when he has good games, he has good games. He has bad games, but this is a good game for him. I love like all the Jordan Love stuff this week.
You know, Jordan Love has thrown a lot of interceptions this year, compared to last year. He's thrown 8. But I will say, as he missed a few games, he is tied for second right now in passing touchdowns already. They are slinging it. I still think that knee is a little bit banged up here and there. But they're still winning. They're finding ways to win. He's thrown a lot of touchdowns. I'm here for it. I'm super content taking the Packers in this one. I think they're going to blow by Jacksonville. Jacksonville's obviously coming back from their 2 weeks in London. They got to readjust coming back here. It's a lot for them. So I'm locking them in. Moving this right along, we have the Arizona Cardinals making their way to Miami to take on the Dolphins. Dolphins are favored in this one by -3. No over-under yet has been posted.
I can give the update on that.
That's totally okay. I have not. I should have just Googled it as I was saying it out loud. But I'm just going to be honest right off the bat. If Tua's back in this game, which he is expected to, I'm going to take Miami in this one pretty comfortably. 2 receptions between Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill last week. That is absolutely unacceptable. It just hasn't been going for all the backups that they've brought in. So I'm going to lock Miami in. I do think this offense finally begins to get going. How are you feeling in this one? The Cardinals had a great game. Kyler Murray looks pretty comfortable overall in this offense.
Yeah, Kyler Murray, he's looking good. Marvin Harrison is not looking great in my eyes right now. He has had some games that he's been struggling in. I do think this could be a get-right game for him. Just shout out to Trey McBride. I think that Trey McBride could have another big week. He had 8 catches last week. And I will say, at Arizona, they got a great close win. They are underdogs in this. They're on the road. They're traveling a lot. They're only on 6 days rest. But I'm still going to pick them. I think James Conner, the offense is now running through him and Kyler back there.
Yeah, I'm loving it. Also, the over-under here is 47.
Nice. I would take the under on that.
Yeah, I don't like the over on that. Take the under. All right, moving this along. New York Jets making their way to New England to take on the Patriots. Jets are favored in this one by -7. -7. Over under here, 39.5. A little surprised that they're up by a touchdown considering what we saw last week. That being said, New York Jets all the way. Jets, Jets. At this point, really what it is, you drop to 2-6, you're done. I'm sorry.
It's over.
It's over. The experiment's over. The Green Bay Jets are done. All right? It's not happening. It's not working. It's done. You got to win. At this point, it's a legitimate must-win game.
Just no more Aaron Rodgers friends. Let's just let Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall be the stars that they are and do that. Win the game. I mean, I agree. I'm taking the Jets, but I think it's just because they have the better overall team right now. Jets-Patriots is always a slugfest, so I will take the under as well on this at 39.5.
I might also even lean with the Patriots on the plus on that spread. It's -7.
Ooh.
Jets can win, but I don't think it's going to be by a touchdown. I think we're winning on a Greg Zuerlein touchdown or field goal. I mean, it's not pretty, but they got to win this. This is a must-win for them. Moving this right along, here are the Atlanta Falcons making their way to Tampa Bay to take on the Buccaneers. Atlanta's from this one by -1.5. Over-under here of 48. This is kind of a weird one because this would have been the game of the week, but the issue is that Chris Godwin goes down. He's out for the season. Mike Evans goes down. He's out until week 11. Very drastically changes the dimensions of these two teams. How are you feeling going into this one?
Yeah, I would have picked the Bucks the way that they were playing last week and the way they kind of rallied last week, and they're at home. But man, the Falcons have been surprising us every week this year. Drake London is officially getting into that, kind of top 20, top 15 category right now in all these stats. I think this is a close division game where the road guy is favorite. I'm going to take the Falcons. But I think Tampa could do something with this three-headed backfield with Tucker. Rashad White was the third highest scoring fantasy player besides Lamar Jackson and Gibbs last week. So that's definitely something to monitor. But take the Falcons.
Yeah, I have to go Atlanta here. I picked Tampa Bay to win the division, and I have hope that they will. Atlanta's sitting right now first atop the division. This is the second game, I believe, that they're playing against one another. Atlanta's 3-0 in the division currently. That's we talk about it all the time. Division games get really important because you know why? When you're 4-3 and the guy in your division's 4-3, these games matter. These games matter.
Playoff game.
I think it's.
But the whole division's hurt. It sucks.
Whole division's hurt. Two teams are hurt. One team is terrible. All right, but Atlanta, I'm sorry with like the 4 touchdown, 500-yard Kirk Cousins back to whatever that was last week. That is just the Kirk Cousins roller coaster, baby. But you'll get this win this week. Moving this right along, we have the Dallas Cowboys making their way to San Francisco to take on the 49ers. 49ers favoring this by -6 with an over-under here of 47.5. Now again, -6, big spread here. Injuries: Kittle, Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, Jawan Jennings. I mean, it's rough right now for the 49ers. This is a Sunday night football game. How are you feeling about this one?
I'm feeling like this is going to be just a dirty game. I mean, the Cowboys have to get it right. They're 3-3. Your season will change there if you're 4-3, or if you're, especially with this division, Washington's getting up on them. I think San Francisco, they're going to have to take an adjustment week here. They're going to wind up coming out 3-5. I'm taking Dallas as underdogs in this one. It's late night. Dak usually plays pretty well in prime time, unless it's a playoff. So I'm going to take him. 49ers. It's unfortunate because a fully healthy team on both sides. This could be, one of the games of the week. But it's unfortunate, but I'll take Dallas.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the 49ers here, not very comfortably. It's not going to be a pretty win. But to your point about, Dallas being at 3-3, San Francisco's 3-4. They're 1-2 in their division. Again, division games so important. They lost to the Cardinals. The Cardinals win last week. They're 4-3. They're third in their division right now. That's not where we expect them to be. And the injuries are happening, and I totally feel that for them. And of course, that plays a role. But this is like, does this stellar defense that is loaded with talent make the moves that you need to make? And it has to be now. Because you get to this 3-5 hole, it's like Cardinals get that win. Seahawks get that win. Away from you. We're in the key moments of it, so I got to give it to the 49ers. Got to get back on track if they want to be Super Bowl hopefuls, playoff hopefuls. Honestly,
yeah, I just love Dallas coming off the bye too, and they're also coming off the Jerry Jones birthday, blowout from Detroit. So I think they just have a lot on their back coming this week.
That's totally fair. I totally get that. All right, let's move this into our game of the weeks. We have the Chicago Bears making their way to Washington to take on the Commanders. Commanders are favoring this by -1.5, over-under here of 47.5. Now again, Jaden Daniels might not be in this game due to the rib injury, so just keep that in mind. Marcus Mariota could be getting the start. What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, Heisman Trophy winner Marcus Mariota. Love that guy. Came in relief 203 with 2 touchdowns through the air, 13 and 36 on the ground. Genuinely great performance from him. It was a blowout. That's what they needed. I've been going with a lot of dogs today. I think that the Bears, outside of the blowouts, but I think the Bears could do this. They've won 4 straight. They're coming off the bye. The Commanders are going to have to probably adjust if they play with Mariota. And I know, the Bears 4-2. They got to keep up in this division. They have with the Vikings 5-1. Detroit's 5-1. This is going to be a tight race for Caleb Williams. I wish Jaden Daniels would play because then you get the number 1, number 2 overall picks, but we don't always get what we want.
I want it to be the number one and number two overall picks as well. It's going to be a tough one, I think, maybe for Jaden Daniels to be in this one. Another Heisman Trophy winner against Caleb. Another Heisman Trophy winner. A lot of Heisman Trophy winners in this game. Anybody else out there on that team? No, I don't think so. We don't have anybody hiding in the backfield. All right, but I got to give it to Washington right now. I just think this team is playing great. They're looking fantastic. My only concern, and this is not a knock on Caleb Williams, not a knock on the Bears. I think that they're doing everything right. I love the growth that we've seen out of Caleb. But their 4 wins have come against arguably some of the worst teams in the NFL, maybe, but all teams with losing records, okay? It's been the 1-5 Titans, the 2-5 Jaguars, the 1-6 Panthers, and the 2-4 Rams. So just some teams that they've beaten up on are not necessarily teams that you're saying are a huge challenge. So something to keep in mind. Now they're facing against a pretty good Washington Commanders team. Mariota seems to have at least a good command of this offense if he needs to start in this one. Obviously, Jaden Daniels looks potentially like the most likely to be the Offensive Rookie of the Year, but could change if this injury and loss maybe happens. So,
yeah.
I got to go with Washington, though, on this one. I just think it's going to be tough. Let's keep this moving along. So we have a great one, honestly, when the Buffalo Bills made their way to Seattle to take on the Seahawks. Buffalo's favored in this one by -3 with an over-under here of 48.5. How are you feeling going into this one? A little bit surprising to see Buffalo getting the favorites on the road.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely, they got a couple of great games here at 4 o'clock, but this is probably the game you should be watching on Sunday. Especially the Bills going to Seattle, where it's been tough to play unless somehow you're the Giants this year. Buffalo favored on the road. Amari Cooper, he had to kind of get it right last game, but Keon Coleman being the first guy to get 100 yards on this offense this year, I think that's an amazing feat for him as a rookie. DK Metcalf being week to week kind of gets me more on the Bills' side. But when I'm looking overall, I think the Bills are just playing great football right now. Their defense is keeping them in games, and Josh Allen is not making as many mistakes as we think. It's definitely going to be a passing shootout no matter how many guys are hurt, because even if DK's not there, you have Lockett, you have JSN, you have Kenneth Walker. So, give me the over 48.5 and Buffalo -3.
I like the over on this one for sure. I'm going to take Seattle. I think they're at home. You're going to get the 12th man going. They're coming off of a big win on the road in Atlanta. The offense looked a little bit better. I think you're absolutely right. The loss of DK Metcalf is going to be big. But Jackson Smith and Jigba's been having a pretty good season. Tyler Lockett has shown moments where he shows up. Kenneth Walker is absolutely electric, playing like one of the best running backs in the league right now. So I think they're going to get the home crowd. I think they're going to get this defense going. I think it's going to be enough to slow down the Bills and maybe make Josh Allen make a mistake or two here and there, if not one of the other guys on the team. Although I do want to give a shout-out to Josh Allen. I was very worried about this Bills team. I talked about it a lot off-season, just getting up to this 5-2 start. Even if they drop to 5-3 in this one, they're playing lights out. Josh Allen looks great. James Cook looked fantastic. I mean, Keon Coleman was one of my favorite guys coming into this draft. Moving this along, last game of the entire week, we have the Philadelphia Eagles making their way to Cincinnati to take on the Bengals. The Bengals are favored this one by -2.5 with an over-under here of 49.5. I just want to shout out A.J. Brown, who's on my fantasy team. Electric week 1, missed some games with a hamstring, came back and has just been perfect.
I just want to shout out Joe Shane because he just let Saquon go to the Eagles, and we found out why that's a bad idea last week. And I don't mean to copy your flow there, Sean, but I'm looking at these notes and thinking, the Eagles last week, they got the Giants. Their defensive pass rush looked good. They got everybody involved, despite the fact their offense looked so good. A couple of tush pushes in there, and they're good, especially with Saquon having the game he has. The Bengals are going to have to step up, though. Really, this is going to be a big challenge for them. We've seen them struggle in so many games this year where I believed in them. So I am weary to pick them again, but I will. I think that this is going to be just a very good game. These teams match up very well against each other. Give me Cincy at home. Give them 4-4 record at the end of this.
Yeah, the one problem I feel like with the Eagles has been their passing defense, and I think it's gotten better over the last few weeks. I think this is going to come down to a shootout. I feel like this is going to be very similar to the Ravens-Bengals game that we saw earlier, where it's just kind of like this back and forth back and forth passing match.
Yeah.
Between, you got Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, and you got A.J. Brown and Vonda Smith. Like, it's a pretty loaded offense. You got Saquon Barkley, obviously. The big concern for me, then looking at this, is that I guess the Bengals are giving up about 217 passing yards a game, but they are also giving up 136 rushing yards a game. Like, you are absolutely able to run on them.
Damn.
It's very easy that Saquon Barkley could have another 100-yard rushing game against a team. Wouldn't surprise me at all. I'm going to lock in the Eagles. I like what we see out of their offense. I like what we're seeing a little bit more from their defense. I'm still a bit shaky on them for the rest of the season, despite the roster that they have, which is like so talented. But I will trust them in this game. Bengals, I feel like, might have to do some reevaluating in the coming months, especially in the offseason. I'm very curious to see what happens with Zach Taylor. Where does his contract go? With Jamar Chase, not that he's going to be re-signed, but like, where is that contract number going to be? Is T. Higgins going to be around for the potential future? Is he maybe going to like Pittsburgh or something? Not in a trade, just like offseason. So, Bengals, tough division right now. Very interesting.
Yeah. I know. I don't want to pick them, but I am.
I know. I totally get it. But that's all the time that we have. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Thank you, everyone, for listening. We're just flying by with the NFL. I'm already going to miss it.
Yeah, I know. I'm already going to miss it as well, man. Week 8, we're halfway through the fantasy season, so make sure you're setting those lineups. It is a critical time for them. It's a critical time for us fantasy players. Make sure to check the Discord. We're going to have bets in there all week, all weekend. Chauncey's going to have them definitely for that Thursday night Vikings game. And, make sure to check us out, Just Saying Football, on YouTube, Spotify. Get us in your ears. Get us on your screens. And, making sure to get all your updates, Just Saying, No G, WJS on Instagram. Thank you, and have a great week.
Enjoy.